relationships. As you can see, this show is the first one that's in video form, and that's kind of how it's going to be going forth. I'm just going to be doing videos instead of primarily, like podcast form, even though this will be in podcast form. So yeah, we're just going to start talking about abusive relationships. And the Holy Spirit was just kind of leading me, as the Holy Spirit leads in all my episodes, to talk about abusive relationships. And I think it was really important because last time I was talking about codependency and codependent relationships, and before that I was talking about the idol of beauty. So this whole topic of idolatry, of idols, is kind of reoccurring, as I'm going forward. And when we're talking about abusive relationships, I just want to be clear because, there can be all, abusive relationships can come in kind of all forms, there can be abusive relationships between friends, between family members, but right now what I'm focusing on is abusive romantic relationships. If you're a woman, you and, a man that you are involved with. So that's what we're going to focus on in this time. I want to kind of cover everything and really just talk about this topic. So abusive relationships, as I have, kind of been led, to kind of see clearly, they are idolatrous relationships. They are the reason that they are abusive. The reason that a man is abusive in a relationship is because of idolatry. And as I stated in a past episode, idols are anything that you put above God. They're not necessarily bad things, but they are things that you put above God. And because you're putting it above God, you're basically saying that, I get all of my significance, from this idol. I get all of my self-worth, I get all of my self-esteem, my sense of identity is in this idol. And when we're talking about abusive relationships, and abusive men, it's not always, sometimes men can be abused in relationships, but just specifically talking about abusive relationships and abusive men, right? There is an idol, there's idolatry that is going on. And when I was talking about codependency, I was, saying how codependency is really an ungodly yoke. You're in a yoke with this person, that can be a friend, that can be a family member, and because you are in this yoke with them, you are not setting proper boundaries. You're not, you're making excuses for behavior. You're doing all of these things that are not supposed to exist in a healthy relationship, in a relationship that honors, Christ, and in abusive relationships, all abusive relationships are codependent relationships, but all codependent relationships don't get to that, that level of abuse where it's like extreme abuse. Some of them do, but not all of them. So I just want to be really specific when I'm talking about abusive relationships. I'm talking about emotional, mental, right? Psychological, physical, sexual, these kind of, abusive relationships that you can be in with, with someone, with a partner, an intimate partner, or whatever they call it, And in these relationships, the problem is that there is an idol, and because we have like such a secular view of abusive relationships, there are so many things that people don't understand about what it's like to be in an abusive relationship. And you have so many people who judge victims, usually women who are in these abusive relationships, right? They judge these women, why did you allow that to happen? And why do you choose these kind of men? Why did you go back? All of these things, come up when we're talking about, women who are survivors of abuse. And because, because the world doesn't have the understanding of, of the Bible, right? Of the truth, they don't really understand that there is a spiritual root. There is a spiritual understanding, right, that is missing. That is missing from the conversation when we're talking about abusive relationships. And that is idolatry. In the heart of a man, who is abusive is an idol, and it is an idol of power. This man is unwilling to give up that idol because he gets all of his significance, his self-worth from controlling women, right? Because it's not only just the partner who this man is controlling, but it's his women. He gets his self-esteem, his self-worth, his identity is in controlling women and overpowering women. And just a great definition of abusive relationships that I found was that, if I can find it, it is abuse is a pattern of oppression or mistreatment of a person. So we're talking about this thing of oppression, and this comes up a lot when you're speaking about abuse, this idea of oppression, and in a really popular book by Lindy Bancroft, I hope I'm saying that right, he talks about abusive men. And in it, he says this really important thing, and that is that the abusive mentality is the mentality of oppression. So you have this man who has this idol of power in his heart. This is what he gets his everything from. His identity, is in having power over you. So if you are a woman, who's in a relationship with a man who has an idol of power, he gets all of his identity in having power over you, in controlling you, in controlling, how you see yourself, and controlling every aspect of your life, because that is how abuse is. You are being controlled in every way. How you think about yourself, the things you do, things like not being able to be in contact with family members or friends, or not being able to go certain places. Your whole life is controlled, and this is why in abusive relationships, psychologists and therapists and what have you who are experts on abusive relationships, they always say that it starts off with maybe emotional, psychological abuse, but then it gets worse and worse over time. And that is because this man has an idol of power over you, and he is unwilling to let go of that idol. And this is why abusive relationships, these extremely abusive, relationships, are so detrimental, because they always go, in that direction of physical and sexual violence, and how damaging, that is to women, that your life, is at stake, your safety, the safety of your body, the safety of your very life. This is why they are so dangerous. And it's dangerous because this man has an idol in his heart. This is what he serves, and this is why Abusive relationships aren't relationships. They aren't what relationships are created to be. You know, God created relationships. God created relationships to be, covenant, to honor him, right? To be, to not be, unholy things, right? Relationships are supposed to be holy. They are supposed to honor God. And in an abusive relationship, there is no honor for God in that relationship. You have a man who gets his who gets his identity, from having power over you. And this is what it is in covenant relationships, right? Because in order to be in a covenant relationships, now there are all sorts of relationships, and I will explain that later, because it can be hard to understand that there are all sorts of relationships. You can be in a relationship that isn't extremely abusive, but it still doesn't honor God. And that is because God created relationships. He created them to be covenant, and that means that we answer to someone higher than ourselves. We answer to Jesus. He is Lord over our lives. We don't know how to love someone. We don't know how to love someone. We are all empty, and the reason why we are empty is because we fell away. Because we sinned, right? And we fell away. So if you are a Christian, you have come back. You have been reconciled, and you are learning how to love. But if you are in the world, you don't know how to love. And in the world, there's all sorts of idolatry. There are all sorts of things that you are looking for to give you, a sense of, I am loved, right? I am okay, I'm valuable, I'm worthy, because I have this thing. And idols can be anything. They can be your success and achievements, they can be your children, they can be your spouse, but if our hearts are set on anything else except Jesus, it leads to ruin, because that is not who we are created to be. So in a covenant relationship, you are supposed to answer to Jesus, and in a relationship that is abusive, you have, this abusive person doesn't answer to Jesus. They answer to something else, right? They answer to that idol, that is in control of their lives, because idols control you, and as I mentioned in that book by Lundy Bancroft, where he talks about abusive men, if you read that book, if you go through it, it's a great resource. I really do recommend it, because it really is enlightening, but there are missing pieces, like I said, because this is a secular view, right? But it is very enlightening, because he really does do a deep dive, right, into the minds of abusive men, into all of the justifications, right, all of the things that these men do that they feel they are justified in, the things that they say, the way that they think, it is very distorted thinking, and it's because they have an idol. They have this idol of power, so everything makes sense to them. It makes sense that they would do the things that they do to their, to their partners, or to their children. It makes sense to them because they have this idol in their heart, so just to say that, right, you can see that these relationships are very dangerous. They're very dangerous. This man does not, this man has no intentions of loving you. This man loves something else. He loves power. He loves power. He doesn't love you. And if you're serving this idol, right? If you're serving power, there's no relationship in that. And if you're a woman in that relationship, there can be no, give and take, it's not healthy. It's very unhealthy, because this man has an idol of power in his heart, and to be a woman in that sort of relationship, it is damaging. It's damaging to your, your sense of self, how you see yourself. It's damaging to, your identity, because in these relationships, right, this man is telling you who you are. He's telling you who you are. He's telling you what your identity is. No person belongs in that place. No idol belongs in that place of telling you who you are. Only Jesus can tell you who you are, and this is why it's so important to, just to realize, because it's very difficult. It's very difficult to really understand, why a relationship like that is the way it is, why this man, did these certain things. If you are a woman in that relationship, why this man did certain things. And there can be a lot of self-blame, there can be a lot of judgment from others, but really what it is, it's an unhealthy relationship. It's an ungodly yoke. It's an ungodly yoke, because this man is telling you who you are, and only Jesus can tell you who you are. Only Jesus deserves that place, because he is the one who completes us. He is the one who makes us whole, and when you are in a relationship with someone who is unwilling, they are unwilling to give up this position, right? They want to be Lord of your life. They're not aligned with God's truth. They do not see you as God sees you. They are not telling you, they're not telling you, they are not treating you as if you are a child of God. And this is a lie. This is not the truth. And you cannot be in a relationship like that and and see anything, positive happen, unless there is a real change in this man's heart. Something, nothing will come of this relationship. It's not going to get better, so I'm just going to take a little break and we'll be back. Okay, so we're back, and I'm just going to spend these last few minutes just really speaking to women, because there's just so much brokenness, right? There's so much brokenness that you are dealing with, when you've been in a victim of abuse. And there's so little understanding, it feels, you truly feel alone in what you're going through, that there's no one there to really give you, to really give you what you're looking for, to give you that love, and that compassion and that empathy you're looking for. And, and these abusive relationships, all kinds of abusive relationships, they are damaging. They are damaging. They are sinful. And when you have been sinned against, you have these wounds in your heart. You have these wounds of, these wounds because of this person's actions, because of the things that they have said to you, because of the way that they made you feel, about yourself, like you had no worth. This is what happens in abuse, right? You are being told that you have no worth, that you have no value, and that this person, right, is completely justified in the way that they treat you, in the way that they speak to you. And this is ungodly. This is truly wickedness. And it's not aligned with God's truth at all. It's not aligned with God's truth. It's not aligned with the word, and it can be so isolating, because this world alone, doesn't have an understanding, doesn't know the spiritual root of abuse. It doesn't really know why do people, abuse, and, and why is it so hard, for victims of abuse? Why is it so hard for, us, right, to heal, and to, not be in, and other relationships, that aren't harmful, and really, really what each and every single one of us is looking for, whether you have been abused or whether you haven't, we all deal with idolatry, we all deal with looking to things, to give us a sense of identity and a sense of significance and of worth, right? We all deal with this, and we all deal with an issue of identity. We don't know who we truly are. We don't know whose we are, right? Because when you get to know, the word, when you get to know who Jesus is, and it's like, okay, God is the one who completes me, God is the one who completes me. Nothing in this world can complete me, it doesn't matter how successful I am, it doesn't matter, if I get married and have children, all of these things that we desire so much, or we put too much in, and we put above God, right? These things, they're always going to break our hearts. They're never going to give us what we're truly looking for. And when you have been in an abusive, relationship, no matter what that relationship has been, whether, it was with a parent or whether it was with an intimate partner or what have you, these things are very damaging. They're very wounding. They're so far from the truth that Jesus gives us, and in Isaiah 55, which is just a beautiful chapter, which is really about grace, right? But it says, "Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that hath no money, come ye buy and eat. Yeah, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Wherefore do you spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfieth not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness. Incline your ear and come unto me. Hear, and your soul shall live, and I will make an everlasting covenant with you, even the sure mercies of David." Jesus is wanting to be in relationship with us. He wants to be in covenant with us, and we need him, like what we are so longing for so deeply, and what we need, is what Jesus provides. It's what he gives us, and when you have been a victim of abuse, it's like you have been told completely opposite of what Jesus, wants us to know, and what he, wants us to have. Like he wants us to know that we are loved. He wants us to have that love, to have that love. Not only know that we are loved, but to have it, to have that sense of worth, and to have that sense of value, and if you have been in an abusive situation for years, maybe your whole life, you have been told the complete opposite of what Jesus tells us. So this is what we all are looking for. We all are looking for a relationship, with Christ, a relationship that fills us, it fulfills us. And it can be so isolating and so lonely, to have gone through abuse, and to have all of this this wounding and this brokenness, and you're looking for healing, and it's, just to let you know, Jesus has that healing, Jesus comes and he heals all of that, so in that scripture by Isaiah, it is an invitation into relationship, and an invitation into healing, into being satisfied. It says, why spend money on what does not satisfy? Why labor? Why desire? Why go after these things that are not going to give you the satisfaction that you are looking for? Jesus gives you that. So I just want to make that clear. And just to really express that, and just to let you know that there is healing for you, that there is understanding, that Jesus understands what you have gone through, and that he doesn't blame you. It's not your fault. It is not your fault. You didn't deserve it. You didn't ask for it, but Jesus wants to come in and come in and replace, that empty place in you, that place that couldn't be filled and it can't be filled by anything else except him. So I hope you enjoyed this. And until next time, see you later.